Hey everyone, this is Lisa from Life in Layouts, and welcome back to day number 2 of March Madness. Today's sketch definitely has a pocket page vibe to it, and I am going to be using Kellybell Designs' Kingdom of Animals to document the 25th anniversary of Animal Kingdom. I am going to get a ton of photos on my layout, not only on the layout itself, but I'm also going to be adding some flip-flaps. Because my layout has so many photos and really only 4 pocket cards, I thought I would start out in the Silhouette Studio to show you how I took the pocket cards from Kellybell Designs and added a little extra touch to them. These 2 pocket cards are great cards, and they would be perfect just as they are if you wanted to print them out as a 4x6 and then add them to your pocket pages. I like to add a little bit of dimension to the cards just to give them a little extra pop. So I'm going to show you how I take some of the other pieces from the collection and add to these pocket cards. And then once I'm in my scrapbook room, I'll show you how I put all the pieces together. The first thing that I did was pulled in some of the element pieces. The flowers and the leaves come from the kit. This large Disney Animal Kingdom with the Tree of Life behind it comes from the snippets, and the Adventurous Calling comes from the flare. What I'm going to do is use these pieces to overlay my cards and allow them to have additional dimension. I'm going to start out with the Disney Animal Kingdom and the Tree of Life. I'm going to move it over to my 4x6 image, and I'm going to zoom way in. I like to use this zoom tool that allows me to draw a box around the area that I want to zoom into. I'm going to resize the Tree of Life so that it fits perfectly over the Tree of Life on the card. Sometimes Silhouette likes to add some additional features that you need to turn off to help this process go a little bit easier. Select the page setup over on the right hand side, and then select the grid settings at the top and uncheck snap to grid. I'm now able to move this around without it snapping into place. I like to line up the bottom of the image, overlapping it just a little bit, and then making it a little bit smaller until it fits in perfectly. Sometimes I have to move it around. All right, so that looks as if it is perfectly overlaid onto my pocket card. I'm going to move it off to the side for now. Zoom back out. And I'm going to do the same thing for the flowers, the leaves, and this Adventurer is Calling. This process does take a little bit of time, but it is well worth it in regards to making sure that you are able to have some extra dimension in your layouts. Now that I have it all lined up, I'm going to zoom out to my entire mat. I can select the Fit to window at the top of the screen, and I now am able to move over these extra pieces. Then I'm going to use the print and cut feature from Silhouette to print out these images and allow my Silhouette to cut them out. I'm going to move my 4x6 images off to the side so that I can focus on the top layer pieces. I'm going to select the page setup on the right hand side. I'm going to change my media size from 12 by 12 to letter because I do not have a wide format printer. This allows me to see that my cutting mat is now gray and my media size is the white area. I'm then going to select the print and cut option on the right hand side, and I'm going to enable my registration marks. This is going to allow Silhouette to print out the registration marks that are needed to ensure that your print and cut features work well. I'm going to move my images over into the white section of my media. You want to make sure that you are inside of the registration marks, and you can always check that by going over to the send option in the upper right hand side, and you will see that the red cut lines are there. I moved my yellow flower over to show you what I mean by ensuring that the red cut lines are available. When I select the send option now, you'll notice that the flower is outside of the cut area and it will not cut the left-hand side of the flower. So you want to make sure that all of your cut lines are visible when you go to the send. I usually do this prior to printing out my image to ensure that I have no issues when I go to cut it. I also want to point out that there are some items in the cut files that may be too small to cut out, and I usually remove those. I've zoomed way in on the tree, and as you can see, there are really tiny cut lines in the centers of these trees that are going to get very difficult to cut on your silhouette. So let me show you how to remove those. If I right-click on my image and select Release Compound Path, now all of my cut lines are separate images from the outside image. The first thing you need to do is click outside the image so that you've unselected everything. And then I go in and delete each one of the small cut marks. Now, after I print out this image and send it to my silhouette, it is not going to cut out the center parts of the tree. I also noticed a really tiny one on my flower, so I'm going to do the same process of right-clicking, selecting Release Compound Path. I'll need to zoom out so that I can unclick my image and then zoom way back in so I can select that tiny one and delete it. Now selecting the Send tab on the upper right-hand side, I can see that my cut marks have been simplified. Going back to the design option, over on the far right-hand side, I'm going to select File and Print. You will receive this print preview. I will select Print as well on the bottom right. Your print dialog should appear, and you can go in and change your preferences. I do have a link to how to print paper and what paper options you should be choosing. I will link it here. But real quickly, I am going to select Preference. I'm going to go down to Digital Paper, which is a personal setting that I have saved. It's going to change my media type to matte photo paper, my paper quality to high, and then I'm going to select OK to print this paper. Once my paper has been printed, I will then add it to my Silhouette mat, and I will come back to this page, going over to Send. It is extremely important that you do not change anything on this page once you've printed it and before you send it to your silhouette. So I'm going to go over to the right-hand side and select Send. I do not currently have my silhouette attached to my computer, but you would have the options on your screen to send this to your silhouette, and then it would cut out your cut lines that are listed here. All right, guys, let's get these images cut out. I did prepare a couple of other pieces for the 4x6 cards. I'm going to have a total of 4 4x6 cards, and you can see that I added the circle that has all the animals on it, as well as this wood piece that I'm going to cut out. I'm going to add that wood piece on top of the wild things. I wanted to show you that I decided not to cut out this really tiny bird. I'm just going to leave it on the 4x6 card. I knew that my silhouette was not going to be able to cut that out. It was so small. A little while ago, I mentioned in one of my videos that I needed to replace my mat and my blade, which I have done. And I quickly remembered why I hate doing that. I have put this mat on my shirt. I have touched it with my hands, but it is still super sticky. So you're going to see me struggle with my mat for the next couple of videos. I decided to pull out my inks, and I just wanted to show you here that the bottom part of this flower has been inked, but the top part hasn't. And I feel like inking just gives it so much dimension and really does bring it more to life. Kelly does an amazing job of providing dimension in these digital files, but I think the inking just brings it to another level. As well as you can see here on the wood that there's like a little tiny slither of white showing, and the inking allows me to cover that area up as well. I love the print and cut feature on the silhouette. It is 100 times better than fussy cutting, but it is a machine, so it's not perfect, and using the ink to cover that up does really help. For the animals, there was a lot of white showing, so I did decide to turn over one of the cards and use that to help me color in the animals. And I actually really like the way that I ended up doing that because the animals are actually darker than the inner circle. The animals with the circle has Animal Kingdom on it, but I already have Animal Kingdom on another card that I'm going to be using. So what I decided to do was create a circle in the silhouette, and then I pulled in the numbers from the alpha set of the collection and added that to the green circle, and I'm going to use that on top of the animals. So when you are looking at these element pieces in the collection, don't limit yourself to what's on them. If you like the element, but it doesn't necessarily work for you, just like any other embellishment that you would use in anything else you do in scrapbooking, make it work for you, which is what I end up doing. So I'm going to go ahead and cut out the 4x6 cards. I'm going to get a total of 23 photos on this layout. I just couldn't narrow it down. This layout's going to come together pretty quickly. For this 4x6 card, what I decided to do was take the paper that had all the leaves on it, and I created a 4x6 card. I added the circle element to it before I printed it out. I then cut out another circle element and I put that one up on fun foam. And then I'm also going to add the 25 on top of the circle so that it covers it up. As you can see, that little tiny bird that I didn't cut out is still on the card itself. So it actually looks like that bird is further away than the rest of the animals. And I really like the way that that turned out. And now I'm just going to use some fun foam to layer up all of these pieces. I added the Disney's Animal Kingdom with the Tree of Life to that card that has the wood piece on it, as well as the 2 ribbons. For this particular card here, it says Wild Times, and I'm actually going to put my journaling on that card. So I just added the wood ribbon as well as the Wild Times, so that one was pretty simple. And then the last card is the Adventure is Calling, and this one is a little bit more difficult simply because the flower and the leaves are going off the edge. So I started out with the leaves themselves and I added the first one down. Then I realized that I probably should just put the foam adhesive directly on the card to add that second leaf since it was overlapping the other leaf. I did use my pencil to curl up the flower to give it a more realistic look. And then I'm going to use some foam adhesive on the back of the flower as well. Again, just putting it on the 4x6 card because I don't want it to have more dimension on top of the leaves. I just want the flower to pop up and then it will also be popped up with the leaves. I did decide to put just a little bit of foam adhesive on the edges where I had curled up the flower. And then I tucked in the Adventure is Calling. And I probably should have done this one before the flower since I had to tuck it behind the flower. But the amount of dimension that this gives to just flat 4x6 cards really makes this layout pop, especially since I have 23 photos on this layout. After I get the adhesive down, I cut off the edges and then I did pull out my ink just to ink up the edges of the card as well. And I do decide to ink up the edges of all 4 of the cards. So I've mentioned before that I do not have a wide format printer, and printing 4x6 cards is another way that you can utilize a regular standard printer to print out digital content. So maybe you have a collection that you like, but you just want to add a couple of additional pieces to it, maybe a 4x6 card or a 3x4 card. This is where digital content can really come in handy. And I want to encourage you to think outside the box in regards to digital content because it really has changed my thoughts on how to document my Disney photos. Now the fun of putting this layout together. I had made a decision that I was not going to use white cardstock for any of the March Madness layouts. Yesterday's video was the first video and I used pink cardstock on that, and I thought, you know what? This might be a fun challenge. So even though I'm using white cardstock, I'm kind of giving myself a pass because I am doing wall-to-wall photos and you are not going to see any white cardstock in this layout. So let's see how far I can get this month in regards to not using white cardstock as a background. So I'm going to go ahead and cut out all of my photos. I do have some 3x4 photos, and I also put some 2x3 photos on 4x6, but I'm going to leave them as a 4x6 because I don't want to have to paper piece them back together. And I was very strategic in the way that I planned out the photos so that I could keep them as a 4x6. To be able to get 23 photos on this layout, I am going to need flip-flaps. I'm actually going to end up with 3 flip-flaps on this layout. I'm going to have 2 3x4 flip-flaps and 1 4x6 flip-flap. The first flip-flap that I'm going to use is I was able to get a picture with Kevin. He was walking around at Animal Kingdom, which he is the big, beautiful peacock from the movie Up. But there's also a magic shot with me and Kevin. And then there's also a shot of Kevin from the morning show that they did. And I felt like I could use the flip flap because it's all the same. So that was my first flip flap that I used. I have this photo here, which is of the signage that they were using for the 25th anniversary, and I really liked it. I couldn't get it to scale down to a 3x4, so when I printed it out, I did print it with the white border, but I still couldn't get it down small enough. So what I decided to do was cut it down as much as I could, and then the 3x4 photos that are next to it, I cut those down just a little bit so that I was able to fit all 4 of those photos. So the footprint on the right-hand side is actually a little bit different. It's not technically 4 3x4s, but you really can't tell because the extra amount on the 25th anniversary photo is not significant enough. So you really can't tell that these photos are not the same size. For the left-hand side of the photo, what I decided to do was I have those 2 photos that have the photo collage on them, and they are very busy. So I decided to put the Tree of Life in the flip flap on top of them. So when you're looking at the layout in my album, it is going to look less busy, which is something that I am trying to achieve with 23 photos on a double page layout. And now it's just about putting the photos down. And as I do that, let me tell you about my day celebrating the 25th anniversary. I love going to Disney on any holiday or special events like their anniversaries, which they tend to celebrate any anniversary at all. But the reason that I love going is that they always have extra things that are not there on a regular basis. For this particular day, they had special characters. I was able to get a picture with Jiminy Cricket, which is hardly ever out. I was able to get some magic shots with Wally and Eve, and I was holding a little plant that Wally has in the movie. I was also able to pick up the Pumbaa popcorn bucket with the 25th anniversary strap. Those are things that you're not going to get on a regular day. They're bringing them out for these special holidays or special events, and I want to be there to get those photos because that's what I enjoy about Disney, are these extra special touches. So I've got all of the photos down. I did end up pulling up the Jiminy Cricket photo because I wanted to put that in the flip flap and I wanted it to be on the top. So I added a photo of me down and then put Jiminy Cricket as well as me with another magic shot in the flip flaps. And then I pulled out this liquid glass from Close to My Heart, which is super, super old and it's not available anymore. But I do know that Glossy Accents is something that is very similar, and I will link it below because I have actually picked it up and tried it and it really is very similar. So I added just some little dots to the yellow Adventure is Calling card just to give it a little extra touch. And then that is it for this video. Here is my final layout as well as some close-ups. I did do my journaling offline and it says, the 25th anniversary of Disney's Animal Kingdom was an absolute blast. It featured rare characters, unique magic shots, and even a Pumbaa popcorn bucket. All right, if you guys enjoy this video, if you wouldn't mind giving me a thumbs up, I would really appreciate it. If you haven't done so already and you want to see more double page layout inspiration, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Thanks everyone for watching, and I hope that you have a scrappy day.